Hamer versus Sidway. William Story promised to pay his nephew $5,000 if he would abstain from drinking, using tobacco, swearing, and playing cards or billiards for money until he reached age 21. At the time, the drinking age was 18, so the nephew had a legal right to drink before he turned 21. The nephew abided by the conditions that his uncle had set, and after his 21st birthday, the nephew asked his uncle for payment. The uncle agreed that the nephew had honored his promise, but he told his nephew that the money would be held in a bank until the uncle believed the nephew was ready. The nephew agreed, and while his $5,000 was still in the bank, the nephew assigned his interest in the money to his wife, who in turn assigned the interest to Louisa Hamer. The uncle died without paying the money to his nephew. Hamer demanded payment from Franklin Sidway, the executor of the uncle's estate. Sidway refused to pay, saying there was no enforceable contract because the nephew gave no consideration for the uncle's promise of $5,000. Hamer sued to enforce the contract and collect the money. Hamer argued that the nephew's abstinence from drinking, swearing, gambling, and tobacco use formed adequate consideration for the agreement, making it a valid and enforceable contract. Hamer won at the trial level, but when the executor appealed, the decision was reversed. Hamer appealed to the state's highest court, the Court of Appeals of New York. The Court of Appeals unanimously held that there was adequate consideration to establish a contract. The court held that consideration is not limited to just a benefit to one party. Consideration is also found where a party agrees to incur a detriment. Here, the nephew agreed to refrain from activities in which he was otherwise entitled to engage. The uncle did not need to have actually enjoyed a benefit from his nephew's promise. The nephew's voluntary restriction of his legal freedom was enough to establish consideration. Hamer v. Sidway is important in contract law because it establishes that forbearance, or that is, agreeing not to do something that you have a legal right to do, can constitute adequate consideration sufficient to form a valid and enforceable contract. If you found this video helpful, you can explore all of our content by visiting us at Quimbee.com. If you have a question or comment about this case, please post it in the comments area below, and we'll do our best to get back to you. If you think we did a good job with this video, please like, share, and favorite it. And if you think this video might be helpful to people you know, please share on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Google+ as well, to get this video out there. If you haven't done so already and you enjoy watching videos on this channel, click on the red subscribe button just below this video so you can get all the latest updates.